Good morning, everybody. Thanks for connecting. I hope you can all see the slides correctly. In case, let me know. So this is part 2 of our webinar, overview of the Australian space sector and opportunities for the Italian space stakeholders. It is a webinar in 2 parts that was organized by these 2 key Italian institutions and entities, the Embassy of Italy in Canberra, the Italian Trade Agency, the Italian Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Australia, and ASI, Agenzia Spaziale Italiana. These are going to be the speakers for today. Daniele Loi, Trade Officer, Embassy of Italy in Canberra, Professor Andy Koronios, CEO and Managing Director, SmartSat CRC, Professor Michele Trenti, Director of the Melbourne Space Laboratory in the School of Physics at the University of Melbourne, and finally, Professor Roberto Sabatini, Deputy Director of the Sir Lawrence Wackett Aerospace Centre and Chair of the Cyber Physical and Autonomous Systems Group at RMIT University in Melbourne. This is the program. As you can see, there are also a couple of Q&A slots. So feel free to take a note of any questions that you feel like asking. And in those slots, I'll be more than happy to let you ask your question. To do so, you just need to use the hand icon that you can see on your screen. We've done it yesterday. It's very simple. You should be able to see a hand icon, and then I'll be able to open your mic and let you speak. But without any further ado, I would like to give the floor to Daniele, Mr. Daniele Loi from the Embassy of Italy in Australia for the official salutations. Over to you.
Grazie mille Andrea, buongiorno a tutti, good afternoon everyone. I'm Daniele Loi, Trade Officer at the Embassy of Italy. I'm very happy that the Embassy of Italy decided to partner with the Italian Trade Agency, the Italian Chamber of Commerce in Sydney, and the Italian Space Agency to organize this 2-day seminar devoted to the Australian space ecosystem. Yesterday, we learned that the pace of growth of this sector in Australia is outstanding, as well as its ambition. On the other hand, Italy has such a strong and long tradition in space, and our industries and research sector have a lot to offer and share. We are indeed convinced that from a bilateral perspective, there is a huge potential to be exploited in terms of partnerships, business opportunities, know-how sharing. It goes without saying that Italy and Australia have strong bonds, but when it comes to space, there are still acquaintances. And that is why we have organized this seminar with the hope to draw the attention of Italian stakeholders to Australia and to increase mutual understanding about capabilities, objectives, and expectations. The Memorandum of Understanding that the 2 respective space agencies signed in 2019 triggered a sort of big bang in the development of the bilateral cooperation in the sector. This cooperation, we are sure, will be enriched by a number of initiatives at industrial and research level, and will achieve full potential in the years and decades to come. As Her Excellency Ambassador Tardioli said yesterday during a welcoming remarks, the Italian institutions present in Australia are ready to support and assist. Without losing sight of our forward-looking approach, with the seminar we're happy to shed light also on the successful stories that already exist. Yesterday, Leonardo and Cital shared their positive experience. Today, we will learn more from an academic and research perspective. In the first day of this seminar, Professor Sasanelli illustrated the state of art and the targets of the Australian space sector. He mentioned in particular the Australian Space Forum that is taking place every 6 months in Adelaide, an excellent moment for Italian stakeholders to be introduced into and to learn from the Australian space environment. The next event is scheduled in September. Unfortunately, the pandemic is still largely preventing people from traveling to Australia, but alternative solutions will be made available for those willing to participate in the next Space Forum, and I'm sure that the Italian Trade Agency will share important information about it later. Today, Professor Andy Koronios will focus on the research and development sectors and on opportunities at academic and industrial level. Then Professor Michele Trenti and Professor Roberto Sabatini, two prominent Italian scientists working for Australian universities and based in Australia, will illustrate their respective experience in setting up collaborations with Italian research institutions and universities, connecting industry and academic research, which go hand in hand when it comes to space. Let me conclude this introductory speech by thanking all speakers and participants, as well as the organizers for all their hard work. But let me address a special thank in particular to Anna Maria Fioretti, scientific attaché at this embassy. I wish you all a fruitful and interesting seminar. Grazie mille.
Thank you very much, Mr. Loy. And now I'm going to read just a few lines to introduce to you Professor Koronios. Andy Koronios is a professor of information systems and holds academic qualifications in electrical engineering, computing, and education, as well as a PhD from the University of Queensland. He has extensive experience in both commercial and academic environments, and his research areas include data quality, information management and governance, data analytics, and the strategic exploitation of information. Professor Koronios has led the establishment of several research concentrations, labs, and research centers. Currently, he is the CEO and Managing Director of SmartSat CRC, a consortium of industry and research organizations developing game-changing satellite technologies to catapult Australia into the global space economy. So very excited to hear what Professor Koronios is going to teach us all. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Perhaps I will try to share my screen, if that's okay. I assume that you can see this?
Perfectly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Buongiorno. È un piacere essere qui con voi per esplorare una collaborazione importante non solo per la crescita tecnologica dei due paesi, ma per la numerosa comunità italiana che vive in Italia da oltre 150 anni. Scusate, non parlo molto bene italiano, preferisco parlare inglese.
Your accent is really great, puts to shame my English accent. I'm a bit disappointed, but please go on.
Nicola Sassonelli is a real Italian professore, but I need to practice a lot more. Good morning, everyone. It is my real pleasure to talk to you a little bit about the SmartSat CRC, Cooperative Research Center, and what we plan to achieve with help with colleagues such as our colleagues in Italy. Australia, as you probably have seen yesterday in yesterday's presentations, Australia is really a baby when it comes to space. We have just been born, but we do have very good capability for us to grow, and we certainly have very good godparents like our Italian friends and ESA and NASA and many, many other international collaborations that will allow us to really grow as an industry and as an ecosystem in space, as no doubt Nicola and others explained yesterday. I'll spend a little bit of time to talk to you about the SmartSat Cooperative Research Center. It is a consortium, as was mentioned before, a consortium of a lot of different companies. Some of those companies are global players like CITAL, like Thales Alenia, Leonardo, British Aerospace, Airbus, and some companies from the US as well, like Northrop Grumman, but also many small companies, even startup companies here in Australia that aspire to become much bigger companies and contribute to the space environment. And they are working hand in hand through our consortium, through the SmartSat CRC. They are working hand in hand with some of the best universities in Australia, universities that have significant capability in a number of areas, particularly areas relating to space. We are a consortium that is being funded by the Australian federal government, as well as some state jurisdictions, and also with significant investment by our companies, our universities, and the Department of Defence here in Australia. We have been able to raise $245 million in R&D, which is the largest space R&D initiative here in the history of Australia. As you know, as we've said, we are starting from a very small base, but we are very hungry to really grow and to make this a much bigger initiative that we have at the moment. We have decided to conduct R&D in 3 major areas that would help the Australian space ecosystem grow through R&D, through IP generation, and through commercialization and utilization of the game-changing technologies that we would aspire to develop. We cannot do those by ourselves. Space is an international activity, and that is why we are reaching out to our friends in Italy to really craft these collaborations. These 3 programs are, first of all, advanced communications. This is an area of growth, and particularly not only the terrestrial, the ground-based communication systems, the mobile phone systems, 4G, 5G, and beyond, but also basically coupling that with satellite communications, with infrastructure in space, so that we can actually have very fast communications, very seamless communications globally, wherever we are, whether we are in the middle of the sea or whether we are in the desert, and certainly Australia has plenty of that. The second program is for us a desire and an aim for us to make satellites much more intelligent through AI, through very advanced AI techniques. We want the satellites to become much more autonomous, make their own decisions in some ways, so that they can respond in real time rather than sending all the data down to the ground for analysis. And finally, we want to build the next generation of Earth observation. We in Australia have a very large landmass. We are one of the biggest countries in the world, a continent really. And if we take our land as well as all the seas for which we have jurisdiction, we are 10% of our planet. 1/10 of Earth is under the control of Australia. Yet Australia does not really have the capability to take any pictures of its country, of our land and seas. We rely very much on our partners who are very kind to us, and they give us the data, but we would like to build the capability not only for us to be able to generate our own data, but also for us to be able to analyze that in many advanced ways so that we can have real impactful applications, everyday applications for our industry, as well as the way we live and play. We have developed a technology roadmap of around 30 specific technologies. For instance, in the Advanced Communications, Connectivity, and IoT program, we will be looking at next generation of technologies such as optical communications, such as quantum communications, quantum encryption, and quantum key distribution, very cutting-edge technologies, as well as dynamic networks, networks that are self-healing, communications networks I'm talking about, networks that are self-healing, that are software-defined, and can make their own decisions to route information at the most appropriate, the most reliable, the most secure, and the most efficient path if communication is severed in one particular channel. In our second program, as I've said previously, we want to be able to build technologies that allow the world to have autonomous constellations of satellites, but working cooperatively together and displaying swarm intelligence, if you like, so that they can make decisions as a group, as they are taking pictures or providing communications data and so on. And we are looking at areas such as next generation of position, navigation, and timing technologies, even technologies where the traditional navigation systems, GNSSs, like the GPS system, for instance, if they are for some reason severed or destroyed, how can we actually still have positioning, still have navigation without the traditional GPS and other systems that exist? So some cutting edge technologies in that program. And finally, of course, we do want, together with our partners, to build the next generation of hyperspectral analytics, the next generation of quantum sensors, and the next generation of data fusion architectures, so that we can take all this big data that we are generating and the data that others are generating and fuse them together so that we can develop actionable insights for people, for applications and systems. By the way, all of these slides will be available. So if any of the colleagues in this webinar are interested in the specific topics, you will be able to actually read those when we make these slides available to you. We are also very keen to actually take a mission-oriented approach. As one of your compatriots, a very esteemed professor, Mariana Mazzucato, says, I think she's at the University of Manchester or UCL, I'm not sure, in the UK. She talks a lot about the efficiencies and the benefits of having goal-oriented research, goal or mission-oriented research, rather than just developing technologies one by one. So we are taking that advice to actually take our technologies and push them towards impactful systems, subsystems, and systems of systems, in fact, that actually meet some of the grand challenges of Australia and indeed some of the grand challenges of the world. One of those, of course, is water management. Australia is the driest country in the world, and in fact, the state in which we are, South Australia, is actually the driest state in the driest country in the world. So we are very conscious of the fact that our waters are depleted, our water systems are depleted, and the quality of those water systems can suffer from time to time. So we are partnering with our other very major research organization here in Australia called the CSIRO. We have a partnership with them to build the next generation world-class AquaWatch system, which will be constellations of satellites that monitor the water quality of all of our water bodies, all of our fresh water, but also coastal waters as well, monitor the quality of those water bodies almost in near real time. We can't say real time yet, but certainly in near real time, every few hours, so that we can avoid situations where green-blue algae, for instance, may develop, and that then poisons the water and kills all the life in the waters that we have. We want to be avoiding disasters like those. They happen on a regular basis in Australia, unfortunately, and we want to be able to predict and prevent some of those disasters. The second capability demonstrator area, the second mission, if you like, that we're aiming to build and direct our technologies on is disaster management. We're going to build disaster resiliency technologies so that we can manage the land better. We can predict and even prevent, but certainly predict bushfires and floods. And if we then cannot prevent them, to be able to respond very, very quickly to those issues, to those bushfire events, and at the same time to protect obviously human life, but livestock as well as property, and then to have the systems so that the land and the destroyed areas are really recovering much, much quicker than they do at the moment. Your president and I were very privileged when he visited here. Sorry, your space agency president, George. We actually visited, excuse me, Kangaroo Island, one of the areas that was severely affected after the 1920 bushfires here in Australia, and it was heart-wrenching to see the devastation of that land. And we want to try and help prevent and respond to some of those catastrophic events that Australia on a regular basis, almost every year, faces. Finally, we have been and are funded very generously by our Defense Department, and we will be working on technologies that will help defend the defense of Australia and the national security of Australia. So again, there are areas where we can collaborate with the Italian military in a lot of these areas, and indeed Leonardo, for instance, and Citile, Italian companies with presence here in Australia, are in fact already contributing to our technology in our Defense Department. We are only 2 years young as a consortium, and indeed really only about 18 months, because we needed 6 months to establish the company, establish the organization. And in that time, we have made some good progress, we feel. We have already approved more than 50 research projects, and we are moving very fast now for more projects to be approved even this year and early next year. We are offering doctoral scholarships to students, not only Australian students, but also international students. Very, very important. We would be very delighted, very, very keen and delighted to partner with the fine universities in Italy to be able to co-supervise, to build relationships, excuse me, so that we don't just take an Italian student and bring them to Australia. In other words, we don't want to have the gain of Australia to be the loss of Italy. We want to be working together in providing scholarships for Italian students, to be working together with the Italian academics in Italy and the Australian academics in Australia. And that builds collaboration bridges that will last beyond, say, the PhD candidature as well. We have funding for 72 PhD completions, and after today's meeting, we now have awarded more than 30 of those PhD scholarships. And those scholarships, we are very keen to actually award as soon as possible, because as you know, they take 3 or 4 years to complete, and therefore we are very anxious to see the impact of that research. Also, we have funded 9 professorial chairs to build capability here in Australia. We have decided to invest together with our universities to invest in professorial chairs in those areas that I spoke of earlier, in areas like advanced communications, and particularly in optical comms and quantum communications, but also in areas like AI for space and other areas like that. excuse me, we have now made 4 offers of those professorial chairs. So there are 5 professorial chairs still vacant, and we are looking for world international experts in those areas to fill those areas, to fill those chairs, and to move to Australia to actually help collaborate with SmartSat and help our research agenda. We have also developed in those last 2 years a number of initiatives. We are a national program, and therefore we have nodes pretty much in a number of states now, in 4 or 5 states in Australia. And those jurisdictions, those state governments, have invested additional funding that will be used for us to actually build collaborations with companies in Australia in those states. We have brought all the startup community together, the small space startup community, 1, 2, 6 employee type of companies. We've brought them all together. I think we have about 70 of those as one entity, as one company, and they are working together, excuse me, with SmartSat and with other governments and other organizations to really support each other, to build collaborations. Only today or yesterday, we've released a media release together with the UK government on something called the Space Bridge between Australia and the UK, and there is co-funding between SmartSat as well as the UK government to help small startup companies, both in the UK as well as in Australia, to build those collaborations. We would love to have an Australia-Italy space bridge with the same objectives, to get Italian companies, Italian SMEs and Italian startups to work with us and our universities and your universities to actually build those connections and those collaborations. And next year, we will also, through the generous support of our Premier, you might have seen him yesterday in the Premier, Honourable Stephen Marshall, he has awarded us $6.5 million to build a 6U satellite system that will be providing data for the SA government, but also for others. And that has given us a wonderful opportunity for us to collaborate with the European Space Agency. We are very, very keen to collaborate with our Italian friends, both industry, government, and of course our universities. In all of these areas, whether you are interested or someone is interested in a professorial chair, whether you would like to see some joint project collaboration, we would love that. We would love to be able to co-invest and have some joint projects. We have a distinguished speaker series. In fact, Nicola is the convener of that, and through his great efforts, we already have had a number of distinguished Italian academics and researchers participate in that scheme. We would like to encourage more of that. And we know that at the moment, things are quite difficult with COVID, but we're not going to let that worry us. We are already in the planning and have already approved some visiting researchers from other countries. We would love to start the planning for having visiting researchers from Italy, because that would actually be the moment the borders open. That would be something that would be a wonderful exchange of ideas and research capability. By the way, we've already had some Italian interns from Italian universities that completed some really, really nice work in 2019 before COVID struck. So we're very, very keen to have all of those kind of collaborations with you and others. The SASat-1, as we call it, although I think we now have a competition for naming it a little bit better than, a bit more creatively than SASat-1, that will be launched sometime next year, before the end of next year, and we will be collecting data. We have formed a part, we will be building all of this, most of this here in Adelaide, but we will be procuring the sensor, a very advanced sensor that the European Space Agency has co-developed with a Dutch company called Cosine, and we are already in discussion with the European Space Agency to see how might we leverage the work that they are doing. They already have, I think, 3 equivalent SASat-1s in flight at the moment, and we want to be able to exchange data, exchange IP, and really working closely with the European Space Agency on leveraging these kinds of assets and doing some really cool research and impactful applications. We are also helping a group of agencies, including our space agency, as well as other stakeholders, to bring together and understand what the ecosystem is, where Australia wants to go. And of course, our space agency has done is already doing a tremendous job in developing some roadmaps, technology roadmaps. We will align our efforts with the technology roadmaps of the space agency, but we want to also identify how we will get there. How will we get the funding and the applications and the collaborations so that we as a country can really become a space-faring nation and a high capability nation in terms of particularly satellite technologies. And these are some of the agencies. This is not for me to talk to, but very much for you to have a look at when you get the slides if you wish. There's already a website that you could visit to get more information about that. So we are very, very, very keen to collaborate with Italian universities, Italian companies, SMEs and startups and the larger companies. We already have some Italian companies that are our partners, as I've mentioned. We want to increase that, and of course with the with the Italian government to find ways for us to bring our countries much closer together in the scientific endeavor in the space science area. Grazie mille. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Koronios, for this beautiful presentation and for reiterating your interest in partnering with Italian researchers and academia, and also for that hopefully space bridge that we can set up later. So we have reached our first Q&A slots. If any of the participants or organizers already have a question for Professor Koronios, I would be more than happy to let you ask him your question directly. Let's see if one dares to take the floor. Otherwise, we can also, as we did yesterday, proceed with the next presentation, have the questions all together a bit later. We've got a question? Perfect. So I believe that the question is from the scientific attaché of the Italian embassy in Canberra, Dottoressa Anna Maria Fioretti. Over to you. Thank you very much.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank you very much for this presentation, which was really highlighting of the interest that Australia has in this friendship and cooperation with Italy. My question is for the PhD scholarship, how does it work? Meaning, should the university apply for an agreement before starting the cooperation? Should the candidates, the students, apply for the scholarship? How does it work in practice? Because this is a question that I've been asked from some university. Thank you very much.
Certainly. Thank you, Anna Maria, for your question. I think if a student is intending to come and study in Australia, then all they need to do is to be admitted by an Australian university. And one of our partners, particularly a partner universities, we have about 21 universities. that are partners of SmartSat. So if the Italian student is coming to Australia to study as an international student, then there is no need for any agreements or any university to university kind of understanding. So that's the first option. The other option is where a university here in Australia can admit the student, but can also have the student spend time at a home university in Italy or another university in Italy, and use this as a venue for building a collaboration that is informal. Most universities are able to have an external course supervisor, and therefore that course supervisor can be from Italy, and therefore that then will begin to build the collaboration. Now, some of our universities already have, I'm sure Professor Trenti and Roberto and others already have connections in Italy, and therefore that may actually be an easy one. If, however, so that's the second option, that does not require any formal memorandum of understanding or any kind of other, if you like, formal arrangement. The third one is a bit like a co-tutel program where you actually have a formal agreement, a university to university agreement, so that the student enrolls in both universities, and the result, the testimony at the end, is actually awarded from both universities. I know we have, well, sorry, I shouldn't say we, but my previous university, the University of South Australia, had an arrangement with the University College London, UCL, exactly like that. And they also had a co-tutel, I think it was with the University of Nantes in France. So that is also possible. That takes a little longer because, the academic environment is a little bit slower, particularly with agreements and so on. But once it's established, and some universities already have that, by the way, but once it's established, then it is an easier way to actually have a joint, if you like, collaboration and joint supervision of the student. So there's three ways, if you like, almost successive. A student essentially leaves Italy and comes to Australia and studies, or a student is enrolled in a university in Australia, but is co-supervised with an academic from an Italian university. And finally, a full-fledged collaboration that requires a formal agreement. And that's something that we, SmartSat, do not control. This is something that the university will have to initiate, but we can encourage them, of course. I hope that answers your question.
I see Anna Maria saying that you did. Thank you very much. So if we haven't got any other questions just yet in the pipeline, I'd like to give the floor to the next speaker, Professor Michele Trenti, and subsequently Professor Roberto Sabatini will illustrate their experience in bilateral collaboration with Italian research institutions and universities, connecting industry and academic research. So Professor Trenti, thanks for joining us today, and over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Andrea, and thank you all for being connected to this webinar. I will now share a few slides and leave ample time for questions on the Spirit Italian-Australian Cooperative Project. So let me see if we can share slide. Are you seeing my screen?
We are, thank you.
Yeah, perfect. So today, in the next 5 minutes or so, will be my pleasure to give you a brief overview of the Spirit, the Space Industry Responsive Intelligent Thermal Spirit mission, which is being led by the University of Melbourne here in Australia, and it's a bilateral cooperative project with support from the Australian Space Agency and Italian Space Agency. So Spirit is the very first and only mission so far funded by the Australian Space Agency for launch in space through a competitively highly oversubscribed call for proposal, the International Space Investment Expand Capability Scheme. The aim is in about 2 years. We started the project about 1 year ago, and we are aiming to launch by end of next year a 6U CubeSat, so approximately 10 kilogram in mass in sun-synchronous orbit. Our project, to give you an idea of the complexity of the satellite, is of about 6 million Australian dollars, about 4 million euros of budget. The project, as I was mentioning, is focused on bilateral cooperation. It's primarily an Australia-made spacecraft, with Italy providing the main scientific instrument for the project. The key goals of this complex, innovative nanosatellite is to showcase the maturity of the Australian space industry through an international cooperative project. Spirit will act as a technology demonstration mission in several key areas that have high potential for future applications and commercial exploitation in the areas of thermal management of payloads, real-time communications with nanosatellites, which is an area underexplored at the moment, artificial intelligence on board, and novel forms of electric propulsion on a nanosatellite format. Spirit will also be a bilateral scientific mission, and thanks to the Hermes instrument, which will be provided as a cooperation with the Italian Space Agency and the Italian National Institute of Astrophysics, we'll use Spirit to contribute to high-energy astrophysics, in particular to detect gamma ray bursts, essentially massive rotating stars collapsing into the black hole and emitting gamma ray flashes of radiation that can be observed out to the edge of the observable universe, and cosmic collisions between compact objects that emit gravitational waves, and will aim to detect the multi-messenger counterparts at high energies with Spirit. To give you an overview of our satellite, you can see in the center of my slide the current CAD model after we successfully passed the critical design review a few months ago, with deployed solar panels in the front and deployed thermal radiators for efficient thermal management in the back of the satellite. My laboratory at the University of Melbourne is leading the mission, and we are also developing 2 key subsystems for the project: the Mercury payload for artificial operations and low latency communications between the satellite and the Mission Control Center, as well as the Themis payload for cooling and precise thermal management of advanced sensor. With Spirit, we aim to demonstrate how we can improve the capabilities of the Hermes payload and X and gamma ray remote, as I was mentioning, is being developed in Italy by precision thermal management that we'll achieve on our nanosatellite. Our satellite will also host a technology demonstration payload from Neumann Space to demonstrate for the first time in space operations of an Australian-made electric propulsion technology thruster. The spacecraft platform is also being developed in Australia by our partner Innovor Technologies, and the University of Melbourne is assisted for systems engineering by CITEL Australia, establishing another cooperative link with Italy, since CITEL Australia is the subsidiary of CITEL SPA. Last but not least, Nova Systems is our fourth industry partner in Australia, and will be in charge of the ground segment, and in particular is developing an autonomous intelligent concept for ground segment, capable of, with progressive autonomy, managing multiple satellites. The prime for the project is the Melbourne Space Laboratory. In the laboratory, we have a focus on innovative miniaturized payloads for nanosatellites, in particular in the areas of active thermal management, low power radiation resilient computing, low latency communications, and data processing. Overall in the lab, we have approximately 10 scientists and engineers with extensive experience both in the academia and in the industry, coming from a physics and engineering background. I think that after a year with the Spirit project, and now with the project being well advanced and having started the fabrication of the flight hardware, I would like to talk very briefly about a couple of takeaway points from the project. I think that the Spirit experience shows that international cooperation really promotes mutual growth in both countries. We have benefited greatly from the collaboration with our Italian colleagues, and we're hoping with Spirit to show how we can improve the performance of the Hermes instrument, which will be launched by on other satellites being developed in Italy, but without the precise thermal management that we are aiming to achieve with Spirit. We also received very positive feedback from our funding agencies about having set up the project as a consortium with multiple industry partners being part of it, because that really promotes the cohesive growth of the space sector. Of course, Spirit builds upon a rich tradition of scientific cooperation between the two countries that is extending now to the space sector as Australia develops capabilities. And I would like in this context to highlight that Australia has multiple funding opportunities for growing international cooperation. We heard from Andy about the SmartSat Cooperative Research Center, but that's not the only opportunity. The example is the Spirit itself. Both the University of Melbourne, the Melbourne Space Lab, and Spirit are sitting outside. We are not part of the SmartSat, and we have been able to access a substantial amount of funding through other schemes, and there are multiple other schemes from the Australian government available to promote industry-academia cooperation. So just to leave you with my conclusion, I'm hoping that in a little bit over 1 year, Spirit will contribute to demonstrate how in the Space 4.0 era, we can achieve both scientific and commercial competitive outcomes with smaller, compact, powerful nanosatellites. And if I look towards the future, I think the innovation will be driven by distributed capabilities in orbit through inter-satellite communications, precise sensing, and combination of observations. So we're very happy to discuss any collaborative inquiries that you might have in the areas of our laboratory expertise and or on the Spirit mission. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Trenti, for your presentation and for also, yes, highlighting how you are open and you know, the whole context is with regards to overseas researchers, including Italian ones. So if anyone has got any questions already for Professor Trenti, otherwise we can leave the floor for our next speaker, Professor Roberto Sabatini. I can see him.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Good evening, everyone. Good morning. I'm going to share my my screen. Is that visible?
It is, yes. Thank you.
Okay, so I will leave it in this way. So I will be able to shift between different slides depending on. It's on demand, so it's I arrange it in a way that I can give a perspective what RMIT does and what you know, how we have actually both learned lessons and applied lessons in the space domain, particularly in the area of inter-university collaboration, and how we have also allowed bringing critical mass through industrial triangulation. So effectively allowing you know, government, academia, and industry to work together on certain projects. So just a quick introduction, you know, about RMIT, what we do. RMIT is one of the largest tertiary education institutions in Australia, and we have a number of research centers, institutes, groups that operate either directly in the area of space research or in related areas. So one of them is the Sir Lawrence Wackett Center, for which I'm the deputy director. And we also have the Space Center, which is focusing on geospatial science and engineering. And we have an established track record of research and education in areas of autonomous and intelligent systems, cyber-physical systems, and various other strengths acquired over the years. So the conventional, traditional areas of material science and engineering, which are particularly strong in our university. So the Wackett Center as space system as one of its fundamental pillars. But as you can see, polity, ethics, multifunction material, automation and autonomy, remote and embedded sensors. So most of the other pillars interact with the space pillar. So there are synergy also within the center, which is one of the largest research concentration at RMIT. And we have strong collaboration also with our Geospatial Research Institute, which in 2019 was actually named #1 in the world. So we have a declared strength in the area of geospatial science and engineering. And again, strong collaboration between astronautical space systems engineering and geospatial research. So the Space Center operate, you know, this very interesting robotic optical observer. It's on the roof of our one of our building in the city campus, observing debris and so implementing algorithm of artificial intelligence, particularly machine learning, for space traffic management. Several PhDs have been completed recently in this area, and we will get back to this when looking at opportunities. And also we have student competition. I'm prompting here, you know, the RMIT student rocket team, which won the ARC competition, Australia University Rocket Competition, something that attract, you know, the brightest minds in this very challenging design and flight test exercise. Just looking at, you know, the satellite system domain, where we have declared strength is in the area of distributed satellite systems. So mission architecture, they move away from the monolithic system or just, you know, purely based on constellation, and effectively allow autonomy, trusted autonomy in space through the use of inter-satellite communication, as well as, you know, advanced sensors and data fusion techniques in the satellite clusters, different kind of formations, not just classes, but also swarm fractional trains, for example, that effectively can be utilized in different applications. What are they? Well, in Australia, certainly we have a strong focus on Earth observation, both for civil and military applications, as well as space-based space surveillance, space traffic management, for which we actually currently have a co-tutel agreement, as well as ongoing scholarship, 2 of them funded by the SmartSat CRC, on which former students from universities in Italy are currently involved. So I will touch these. And certainly defense, in particular, multi-domain intelligence, ISR, so intelligence, surveillance, and recognition application are hot here. At the moment, 60% plus of the Solar and Rocket Center come from defense. And you know about the synergy between the Defense Science and Technology Group and the SmartSat CRC. So there is it's now part of the agenda of the SmartSat CRC to address also defense gaps. And in the area of geospatial, certainly, the GNSS, Global Navigation Satellite System, and alternative forms of position, navigation, and timing are heavily researched for various applications, spanning from intelligent transport system to drone, but even agricultural and more. So we're looking at our ongoing research and education initiative. Well, we have a very strong, well-established kind of network in Italy. A co-tutel agreement. Andy Koronios before mentioned this this possibility, and we actually have brought it to life with the Polytechnic of Turin. So we have a co-tutel agreement. Our students get the double PhD awarded by both Polytechnic of Turin and RMIT University. So students spend 2 years in Australia and 1 year in Italy, or vice versa, and get the double award. So this is a model we can imitate. It's very well aligned, it's possible, and actually has led already to some successful completions. We also have collaboration in place, strong collaboration with University La Sapienza, the School of Aerospace Engineering, which effectively teach astronautical engineering, is where I'm from. And still collaborate quite extensively on both publication and co-supervision of PhD students. So to enact this transfer, we don't necessarily need a co-tutel. Andy Koronios was quite right. Sometimes they are bureaucratic and lengthy process. So we can have all universities here in Australia can actually have external supervisor, even joint senior supervisor in some occasion, which is the case. So I'm currently supervising a PhD student from La Sapienza. He graduated, with distinction from La Sapienza. Is now here in Australia doing his PhD in the area of intelligence satellite systems. So he won a SmartSat CRC grant scholarship and is doing exceptionally well. We also have collaboration in the southern Italy. With the University of Calabria, in particular the area of human machine system and trusted autonomy, and various other institutions, different stages, in the collaboration. Obviously, the link with Italian companies and government organizations in defense, in particular, that are active in the space arena, is particularly important and vital, to offer opportunities to our students and effectively enact this triangulation between government, university, and industry. We're fortunate that we have a campus in Barcelona, so RMIT Europe, whose task is effectively to link to liaison with the European Union Executive Research Agency, which is the awarding institution, in Europe. So effectively, we are prompted whenever there is an opportunity to apply for a grant, jointly with our collaboration in Italy, with our network. And over the years, this has been extremely successful, a point of strength for us, leading to various collaboration, not just with Italy, in fact, but also with the European Space Agency and other European universities and industrial entities. So what we do, I will leave, obviously, the slide pack is too long. I only prepared it for the purpose really of providing a comprehensive overview and eventually answer any question. But as I mentioned, we have a co-tutel agreement in force with the Polytechnic of Turin, and also we continuously exchange actually master students. I supervise 6 students so to date. 2 more should come as soon as the COVID restrictions are lifted. So they do their final thesis at RMIT University, so they spend 6 months approximately or more and complete their thesis. We're doing a joint PhD supervision with La Sapienza, and again, these allow involving them in our research program quite directly. Same University of Calabria. We have over the years also collaborated with the University of Sagno, especially in the area of aerospace sensors and metrology. They run a yearly conference, IEEE Metrology for Aerospace, and we contribute to the forums, both the research and educational forums that take place in this international arena. University of Napoli Federico II, which is a leading university, is also where the Air Force Academy in Italy graduates both engineers and pilots. And in Milan, the University of Milano and Polytechnic of Milano, which we're currently consulting in the area of both astronautical engineering and cyber-physical system security using AI, a topic of growing importance, not just in defense, but actually in the space domain as well. The Australian industry collaborations we currently have in place include both formal memorandum of agreement that have been finalized with Avio and the Orbit, but also other ongoing collaborations. So Leonardo is co-supervising our PhD student involved in the SmartSat CRC scholarship. CITAL delivers transformation, really inspirational, distinguished lectures as part of my course, which is Spaceflight System Design at RMIT University, and so on. These are just some examples of how to close up the triangulation between academia, industry, and government, for the benefit of our 2 nations, so Australia and Italy. And these are some examples of ongoing projects. I wouldn't spend too much time here, but we have ongoing projects which are supported by industry primes such as Leonardo, Northrop Grumman, and Thales, funded by the SmartSat CRC as well, and with the contribution of prime universities in Italy. So we are already effectively enabling this transformational experience really for our students. And over the years, obviously, we have brought a number of opportunities to collaborate also internationally. This is an example of a project we have jointly with JAXA, so the Japanese NASA, effectively, and in which also University La Sapienza is involved. It's for the development of a Wave Rider, an hypersonic transport vehicle, autonomous, which we have undertook to develop over the years. So in addition to satellites, we're also looking at other aspects of point-to-point space transport. I'm sure you're all aware about SpaceX, and Virgin Galactic, and the recent flight from Bezos. So all this is already happening. Point-to-point space transport is not only viable, but in the future will be a reality. And so we are looking at also how this will transform the future of present-day traffic management towards multi-domain traffic management. So the fusion of air and space traffic management towards really trusted autonomous operation. I will just conclude here. Another great opportunity, the NASA RASCAL. RASCAL is an acronym for Revolutionary Academic Linkages. And so we have contributed and partnered with US universities, and we have involved in this collaboration various other universities in Hong Kong, in South Korea, in Japan. We can do the same with Italian universities, right? So in order to participate, we need a US university leading, and we have several contacts. We can involve Italian universities as well, and we hope that this opportunity will soon materialize. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Sabatini. Thanks for joining and taking the time to illustrate all of this. We have got a few minutes. If anyone would like to ask any questions to any of our speakers, in the meantime, I might leave the floor to the Italian Trade Commissioner, Dottoressa Paola De Faveri, so that she can also give us her salutation.
Good morning, Italian participants, and good evening from Australia. Just a few words to let you know that the promotional activities for the space sector in Australia will continue through this established collaboration among the Embassy of Italy in Canberra, the Italian Trade Agency, and the Chamber of Commerce in Sydney. For your information, the next initiative will be the Italian participation to the Australian Space Forum in Adelaide. That will happen in September, on the 15th of September, only one day. And all the information to participate to this initiative will be available soon. As you know, the international borders in Australia are closed at the moment, and they will be for a few months ahead. So we are currently studying, working at ways to highlight the presence of participating Italian companies to our initiative. We are also planning to follow up with participations to all the editions 2022. Probably there will be 2 more editions of the same initiative. I would like to, I hope you will participate with us, and we will be strong at highlighting the presence of Italy in this sector. I would like to also thank Anna Maria Fioretti for all the work and the effort that she put into this initiative. And so I would like to leave the floor to her, and afterwards to Silvia, also Silvia Ciccarelli from the Italian Space Agency, if she wants to make a remark. So Anna Maria, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your work.
Mute. Okay, here I am. No, thank you. Thank you everybody for the. It has been an interesting experience to work together, and I think this is just the beginning for we will do the same for other subjects. But yeah, first of all, besides thanking really from my heart all the speakers, Roberto Sabatini, Michele Trenti, Andy Koronios, everyone gave us really a great vision of what the space here in Australia is, and about the possibility of cooperation. I want to think immediately some follow-up of this meeting, because I'm sure that the 40 people that are now following and are keeping silence, they will think about what they have listened to, and they will react soon. So my idea is to organize some specific workshop on specific topic that might be of interest, and we will see what will be the answer of the people that are following us. One could be on the water observation, as water observation is one of the main, most interesting topic of the SmartSat CRC, but there are also other topics on which we can work. And I'm happy that ASI is part of our organization, so we will work close with them for the bilateral cooperation between Australia and Italy. So thank you very much for this. I hope there is some other question coming from the public, because I found very, very interesting all the intervention of all the speakers. Thank you again.
Question.
And there is a question. Yeah.
Mr. Oh, so we've got a question from Mr. Dallari. I'm going to open his mic. I think we have exchanged a few emails earlier today. So you should be able to open your mic now and feel free
yes.
to proceed with your question.
Thank you, Andrea. Thanks, everybody. Daniele Dallari, mechanical engineer based here in Melbourne. I listened very carefully. It was very, very interesting. So one question I have, I've seen there's a good established amount of government and academic fundings. Do you, I don't know who to refer the question to, but does any of you expect end users with commercial advantage like, let's say, mining or farming to step in and fund some of these projects? Or is that something that stays more into the government and academic area at this stage?
Who would like to take that question?
I'm happy to have it now, unless my other colleagues would like to go first.
Professor Koronios, please go. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a very good question. Thank you very much, Daniele, for that question. I think that it is very important that industry co-invest because actually the commitment that they make demonstrates the need that they have and also channels the investment in the right direction. Some of our projects may seem public good, water quality, but actually there is a very, very large water industry in Australia. Industrial companies that are actually serving water quantity, the whole sector of the water sector. And they're very, very interested in that. But also so too are miners. Miners use a significant component of water. You can't mine without a lot of water. And agriculture, of course, is obvious in terms of efficient way of watering. So what we have done is, I didn't mention it, but I had it on the slide. We've actually convened end user advisory boards, particularly for defense, but let's park that for the moment, but for agriculture and natural resources, as well as for mining. And we are working with many of those senior leaders at CEO level. They're the people that participate in those groups to see what the need is and what the real investment would be. And yes, Michele is right that SmartSat is not the only one and only government funding body, but actually there is a lot of industry and private investment in space, and the interest is really pivoting in that area at the moment. There is a lot of interest in space. And for instance, we are currently talking to GRDC. The GRDC is basically an organization that farmers pay a small amount out of the kind of revenues for R&D for agriculture. And they have a lot of interest and a lot of investment. And I mean something like $1 billion of investment in the space of 12 months. Significant investment in many areas, not just space. But now, because there is a lot of activity in space, and because we have people like Roberto and Michele and others are doing work for space, they see the opportunity, and therefore private industry will invest more and more because they will see the impact that that space has for their industries as well.
Thank you, Prof. Koronios.
If I can add, there are many. Thank you very much, Andy. It's spot on. There are many vehicles to do it. The SmartSat CRC indeed is a prime opportunity because it's also heavily funded by the government, and its role is really to close up that triangulation, but also universities. So to give you an example, we have that long-standing collaboration with Northrop Grumman in the United States, and then we have brought it to SmartSat. So now they are co-supervising our students that are funded by SmartSat. That create additional critical mass. Again, there is no better demonstration of impact than working on translational research. and doing engineering research, something that industry utilizes. So the uptake from an industrial perspective is absolutely at the core of everything we do here. There are many ways of doing it. And the co-tutel agreements also that I mentioned, yes, they have an academic nature, but obviously they're also strongly supported by government and industrial organization. That is absolutely fundamental.
Thank you. If I make one postscript to that, thank you very much, Roberto. Great points. One postscript, and I cannot speak for the Space Agency, but the Space Agency is likely to get more funding. We hope that it will get more funding. And in even the funding that it has, it doesn't just give the funding, it always looks for co-investment from industry. Therefore, they want to leverage that. So you'll find, Daniele, that it's not going to be just government handouts. There will be government, if you like, catalyst funding, but actually industry needs to pick it up. And that's exactly how up to now, the Space Agency has operated. And I'm certain that that's the way all government programs will continue to operate.
Perfect. Thanks a lot for that remark and clarification, Professor Koronios. We are nearing the end of the second webinar, but we have, I see, we've got the key contact from the Italian Space Agency, Silvia Ciccarelli. Please feel free to take the floor.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you to all the organizers of this webinar and of the webinar of yesterday. We are very pleased to have organized these two webinars, and a special thanks to our speakers, Professor Koronios in particular, Professor Trenti, and Professor Sabatini. I can just say that we are amazed by the incredible opportunities we see of cooperation of mutual interest. I see many synergies between the Italian and Australian space ecosystem, and I'm very pleased to see how many cooperation there are already in place also on the educational perspective. I'm personally following more the industrial ecosystem at the Italian Space Agency, but I really encourage both the industrial and research Italian ecosystem to approach the Australian market, because we see very many potential opportunities of mutual interest. Mentioning the Australian Space Agency, I can confirm that we have a formal memorandum of understanding in place. We are very pleased to do that, and we are one of the first space agencies who signed this memorandum with ALSA, and we are in dialogue with them to find other opportunities and to duplicate the experience of Spirit. That is a very successful experience on our perspective, and we see many opportunities also for not only for large companies, but also for small and medium companies. I would like to say that in Italy we have a vibrant community of small and medium companies, startups, and they are let's say less structured to work on an international level. But I think that with the support of Italian Space Agency, Italian institutions like the Embassy, the Italian Trade Agency, and the Italian Chamber of Commerce, and together with our friends and on the Australian side, I'm sure that we will be able to find new opportunities. So I would like to thank all and to encourage the Italian industrial community, research community, and education community to get in touch with us. We can support them, and I would like also to confirm that we will be part of the participation at the Australian Space Forum for the next editions. We are very happy to do that, at the system level, I would say, on all the Italian systems. So we will encourage and help all the Italian entities that will take part to this important event. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Ciccarelli. Thank you very much. If we haven't got any other remarks, we have pretty much reached the end of these two webinars. It's been a great pleasure, incredibly interesting, and we learned so much. We really hope that you, both in Italy and whoever is connected by Australia, also took away as much as possible. As the Trade Commissioner mentioned before the slides, as soon as we receive them from all the speakers, together with the recording for whoever would like to receive that link will be available, and you'll also receive more information about the upcoming Australian Space Forum, which is gonna take place mid-September, actually the 15th of September in Adelaide, and we are gonna be there. So yes, all Italian space companies and space economy companies, please answer our call that is gonna happen very soon, so that we can feature you and highlight and showcase the amazing opportunities that Italy can also offer the Australian market. Thank you again, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day in Italy. Good night here in Australia, and we'll be in touch soon with the follow-up. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you all.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.